Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 25 based on novel. So let's start. Once on the second floor, Xiao Yan's steps did not stop at all. Ignoring the strong fighters on the second floor, he kept walking and went straight to the stairway on the third floor. This time, Xiao Yan also didn't do any other polite actions. His internal momentum quickly rose to the level of Do Zun. The breath belonging to Do Zun's strong man suddenly swept towards the old man sitting cross-legged in front of the stairs. The old man frowned and wanted to stand up and stop Xiao Yan to warn him, but he suddenly felt the violent breath of fighting the powerful on Xiao Yan's body. On his old face, the look changed again, and the action he wanted to get up was forcibly pressed down. Looking at Xiao Yan in surprise, I kept thinking about when such a young fighter appeared in the wild ancient city. But Xiao Yan's face looked very flat. He didn't have the opportunity to look puzzled on the old man's face in front of him. As soon as he stepped on it, he stepped into the third floor in full view of the public. After Xiao Yan's body passed by the old man returned to his mind. He turned his head and looked at Xiao Yan's back slowly disappearing in his sight. His eyebrows were frowned. After a good film, he had to shake his head reluctantly, turn back and continue to sit in place and ignore it. As soon as he went to the third floor, Xiao Yan's action was the same as before. The momentum in his body suddenly rose and didn't stop until the Order of Fighting Saint. The elder who guarded the pavilion also sent Xiao Yan to the fourth floor with a smile under the surprised eyes of all the people after a long change in his eyes. After Xiao Yan and the old man disappeared, in the hall on the third floor, the fighting giants who looked more sparse than before could not help talking. In the southwest region, even some old people who have become famous for a long time can't help being a little surprised when they look at Xiao Yan. In this short moment, all the people outside the cloud-hidden pavilion heard of a young Dozong strongman, a young Dozuan strongman and a young Dosheng strongman. Although there are three people, when these people gather all the characteristics of the three people together, they immediately understand that the three people are the same person. The purpose of Xiao Yan's doing all this was guessed by these people, but to avoid some unnecessary trouble. However, it's a pity that Xiao Yan's intention seems to be counterproductive, which just makes more people know the existence of his number one anti-heaven character. As soon as he went to the fourth floor, Xiao Yan felt that the space in front of him was much empty. The people in the fourth floor were much less than those in the lower floors. However, if we want to talk about the strength of the people standing on the fourth floor, they can't be compared with those below, because among them, except for a few people, all the others are the strong one. The strength of the strong man is the lowest requirement for going to the fourth floor. It can be seen from this that the power of the cloud-hidden pavilion is what kind of soul it is. Even those Dozuan strong men who usually receive all kinds of respect from the outside world can only listen and obey the rules here. Even if they are Dosheng strong men, from the moment, no one dares to think about the fifth floor on the higher floor. The strength of Union Pavilion can be seen only in these small things. Casually glanced at the stairs leading to the fifth floor. His eyes swept over the knee-crossed old man. Then Xiao Yan turned his eyes and looked at the counters at will. When Xiao Yan's eyes moved away from the old man's eyes, which had been slightly closed, slowly opened a gap and swept towards Xiao Yan in an instant. And in his eyes looking at Xiao Yan, there was also a touch of surprised light at the moment, and there was a little doubt in the depths of his eyes. Who is this son? He is young, but his accomplishments have reached the point of semi-emperor supremacy. Such talents are no worse than the little lord. It seems that it is necessary to talk to the little lord when there is a chance. The old man's eyes kept scanning Xiao Yan, and his heart was constantly thinking. Finally, after looking at Xiao Yan deeply again, the figure sitting in place slowly disappeared. Even the many fighting saints and strong men in this field were unaware of the slightest change. After the old man's body slowly disappeared, Xiao Yan turned his head and glanced at him at random. He crossed his legs forward and walked to a counter. If you can go up to the fourth floor, how can the people among you be small people? Naturally, the waiter is also extraordinary. Xiao Yan's steps have just moved. An old man with white hair and beard and dressed in a robe has already greeted him with a smile. Xiao Yan looks at his breath. The old man's strength has reached the realm of fighting saints, and the other waiters have their strength, it's the same as them. I want to have them. No one should dare to make trouble in this hall. At the moment, the emergence of Xiao Yan has already attracted the attention of the strong fighting saints. When the public saw that the man who had just come up was so young, they all showed a look of surprise, and there was a strong color of surprise flashing in their eyes. A strong fighter at this age can really be called an anti-heaven level. If Xiao Yang, who had only the breath of Do Zun before, was enough to be summarized by the word demon, then Xiao Yang, whose breath is strong to the level of Do Saint at the moment, has only the word against the sky, can barely discuss it. I just don't know what a wonderful expression will appear on these people's faces when they know that Xiao Yang's real strength is the Supreme Emperor. How can Xiao Yang's terrible talent be completely summarized only by the word against the sky? At the moment, when the people in the hall noticed the real fighting spirit of Xiao Yang, the people in the field also recorded Xiao Yang in their hearts. The terrorist talent revealed by Xiao Yang at the moment was enough to make them show their attention. Just at this age, the cultivation strength has reached such an adverse situation. If you really grow up in the future, isn't it another giant terrorist existence? And this, how can they not pay attention to Xiao Yang? However, compared with these, Xiao Yang, as the protagonist in the field at this time, did not pay any attention to it in his heart. His eyes were just on a counter in the field. He has been able to be completely sure that there is one thing he needs at the moment. The old man on one side also noticed Xiao Yang's eyes, and then the light in a pair of old eyes flickered. He also knew something about what Xiao Yang wanted to see. The old man really deserves to have worked in the cloud-hidden pavilion for many years. At a glance, he can detect what Xiao Yang wants. The man's old and refined language can be used on him, but it's really not too much. Before Xiao Yang came forward, the old man was already one step ahead, let the people in the hall come to the crystal counter, and stared at a jade box with the size of a palm in the counter. The jade box looks like crystal, and it also emits bursts of refreshing cold breath. Obviously, the jade box is by no means ordinary. Through the crystal jade box, you can clearly see that in the jade box, there is a red crystal stone the size of a palm, lying quietly in it. Despite the strong barrier of the jade box, it still makes people feel that an extremely violent fire energy is raging in a little space outside the jade box, which makes the space slightly distorted. It can be imagined how terrible the power of fire contained in this spar is. At the moment, Xiao Yang's eyes also fell on the jade box through the crowd in front of him. To be exact, it was the red crystal stone in the jade box, which was emitting hot and high temperature. This is also the purpose of Xiao Yang's entering the cloud-hidden pavilion this time. Xiao Yang's face was filled with joy, and he couldn't help showing a very satisfied smile at the corners of his mouth. Looking at the eyes in the jade box, there was a certain meaning. Although the old man's face was twilight, his old eyes were extremely sharp. The satisfied smile at the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth was also seen by his income. Immediately, the old man carefully and quickly took out the jade box and put it on the crystal counter in front of him, then looked at Xiao Yang again and said with a smile, "Dare you ask, sir, but would you like to have this burning essence chalcedony in my pavilion?" Xiao Yang smiled again in his heart. The little old man was really wise. He even took the lead and spoke before he was the buyer. "Are you so sure I want to buy your things?" The heart smiled slightly. Xiao Yang also returned to his mind and looked at the old man. A warm smile appeared at the corners of his mouth, and then he nodded gently in the old man's eyes. At this time, Xiao Yang's nodding movement just stopped. In the hall, there was a voice that was not very harmonious. "I want this burning essence chalcedony." Once this sentence came out, everyone in the field looked stunned. Then the crowd separated slowly, and the two figures walked out slowly from the crowd. Everyone in the hall frowned when they saw the two people. Then they looked at Xiao Yang with a little pity, as if they were telling Xiao Yang that he was not easy to provoke. At this time, Xiao Yang was also slightly unhappy when he looked at the two people, but he directly ignored the reminding eyes of others. But it's just a semi-saint and an 8-star saint. This strength can't turn over any big storms in front of Xiao Yang. The old man who presided over the sale was obviously quite familiar with the two people. At present, he looked at them with a slight change, and his eyebrows could not help but wrinkle slightly. "Child Li, this burning essence chalcedony is what the child nodded to buy first. Therefore, please take back your words." But for the old man's persuasion, one of the two men, who looked younger, snorted coldly, then opened his mouth and said with a sneer, "Oh, well, I'm really sorry. I and all of you here didn't see this gentleman nod. I said, everyone, didn't I?" With that, he also turned his eyes to the strong fighting saints standing beside him, and asked in his eyes. When those people touched his eyes, their faces changed slightly, and their eyes involuntarily looked at the old man beside him. The old man seemed to indulge the young man in front of him, just as it didn't matter much whether the young man in front of him did it or not. A faint hum came out from his nose, and the old man swept one by one from the people in the hall with indifferent eyes. However, anyone who was stared at by his eyes was filled with a look of fear in his eyes, and then he buried his head without saying a word. At this moment, the look in the eyes of Child Li looking at Xiao Yang was also full of sneer. There was no big deal for him to come to the cloud-hidden pavilion today. The burning essence chalcedony was not in his plan, but the sudden arrival of Xiao Yang robbed him of the limelight in this moment. You know, Li Kang is the real favorite of heaven in this wild ancient city. When he was young, he stepped into the semi-holy land. Since his debut, he has always been respected and admired by thousands of people. Although he is much worse than the little lord of Union Pavilion, this is the only one he refuses to accept. But now, the sudden arrival of Xiao Yang looks almost as old as he wants. Even looking at Xiao Yang's thin skin and tender flesh, I can't say that he is a little younger than him. But just like this, Xiao Yang's strength has reached the real realm of fighting saint. Compared with his pseudo-saint, I don't know where he is stronger. This is why he wants to fight with Xiao Yang. Today, Li Kang wants to suppress Xiao Yang's limelight and let him understand who is the protagonist in this wild ancient city. All this should be regarded by the old man in front of the counter, but the strength of the old man next to the young man is really extraordinary. The background of the young man is quite a source in this wild ancient city. At this moment, even he seemed quite helpless to him, so he had to hesitate and say again, "Child Li, I hope you can understand that this is my Union Pavilion. Please abide by the rules of my Union Pavilion." This burning essence chalcedony is what the child nodded to buy first. "I hope you can take back your words." As soon as the old man said this, he directly moved out the rules of Union Pavilion, which made Li Kang's face slightly changed. But in a flash, the old man's words turned into a cold hum in Li Kang's mouth. This time, he didn't pay too much attention to the old man, but directly looked at Xiao Yang, raised a sneer at the corners of his mouth, stared at Xiao Yang and said, "If you don't want anything, get out of this wild ancient city, or what else?" Before Li Kang finished his words, Xiao Yang's indifferent voice suddenly came. At this moment, anyone can hear a trace of anger in Xiao Yang's words. At this time, Xiao Yang put all his thoughts on the burning essence chalcedony. Originally, he wanted to leave the cloud-hidden pavilion directly when he got it. It shouldn't be long before he came down in a series, but Li Kang stubbornly consumed Xiao Yang's time here, which really made Xiao Yang feel a little irritable. When Li Kang heard Xiao Yang's words, he couldn't help but feel angry. The man in front of him was really bold. However, an ordinary fighting saint dared to refute him in front of the 8-star saint behind him. How can he not make the Li family feel a burst of humiliation in his heart? Good. What a rebellious person, your future achievements will not be low. Maybe I can't move you in the future, but it doesn't mean now. Today, when you leave the cloud-hidden pavilion, you will die. At this point, Li Kang's face showed a cruel color, and his words were also vicious. You are very noisy. At this moment, Xiao Yang is really impatient. He can guarantee that if the guy in front of him is saying more, he will crush him immediately. Eldest child Li, do you still want to continue making such a fuss in my cloud-hidden pavilion? When Li Kang wanted to continue to say something to Xiao Yang, the fighting spirit in Xiao Yang also wanted to act. In the hall, another voice broke through the air, which made everyone in the hall look a little frozen. Even Xiao Yang could not help but frown slightly, and the fighting spirit he wanted to mention in his body also returned to calm again. The calm of Xiao Yang's fighting spirit also made the one who had just made a noise a little relieved in his heart. Li Kang was even more angry when he heard the words pointing directly at him, but he didn't dare to make a mistake because of the one who appeared at the moment, so he had to soften his voice and say, "Shenlaro joked. How dare you make a mess in the cloud-hidden pavilion?" The old man called Shenlaro snorted coldly when he heard his speech. He didn't say anything to Li Kang, but directly said, "I have seen all the things today. This burning essence chalcedony was indeed won by this friend first. Our Union Pavilion should abide by the rules of the pavilion and sell it to this friend." At this point, anyone could hear it. It was clearly for Xiao Yang. Although Li Kang was unwilling, he could only be angry in his heart. He didn't dare to say more and nodded. However, in his eyes to Xiao Yang, there is endless resentment. Obviously, Xiao Yang has turned into a thorn in his eye and flesh. In his opinion, Xiao Yang will die today. But for these, Xiao Yang at the moment has no time to pay attention. At the moment, he focuses all his attention on the old man. Xiao Yang always felt that the old man didn't necessarily help him just because of his strength. However, the reason for this is still unknown, but I think there should be an answer soon after. "This friend, I don't know your name." As soon as Xuanlao's voice turned, he ignored Li Kang's face of resentment. Instead, he looked at Xiao Yang standing aside with a smile and asked him with a smile. Others can't see Xiao Yang's real strength. How can he not see that in the middle of the 3-star half-emperor, he can already be regarded as a very strong man in this wild ancient city? Although Li Kang also has a good background in this wild ancient city, if he really wants to move the young man in front of him, I'm afraid it's better to weigh it. Hearing the old man's words, Xiao Yang also showed a faint smile on his face. He hugged his fist and arched at Shenlaro, and said with a smile, "Under the rock owl." Hearing the speech, Shenlaro also smiled back with a flash in his eyes, and then smiled again. "Little friend of the rock owl, it's my union pavilion that failed to do justice for you, which wasted a lot of your time. Then today's burning essence Chalcedony, I should be a friend with my little friend and an apology from my union pavilion. I won't accept a penny and give it to my little friend." As soon as Shenlaro said this, all the people in the hall, including Li Kang, changed their faces again. It was clear that they wanted to make friends with the rock owl. Only then could they be so generous. You know, as a superpower, the cloud-hidden pavilion contains all the treasures of heaven and earth that are hard to find outside. However, everything in the cloud-hidden pavilion can be regarded as sky-high price. Therefore, the cloud-hidden pavilion has another well-known name, Tianqi Pavilion. These 3 simple words are enough to explain the real gold content of the cloud-hidden pavilion. In the eyes of most people, this may be the real reason why Union Pavilion can have such strength. After all, if there is not enough huge resources as the premise, who will be willing to join his cloud hermitage? After hearing what Shenlaro said, Xiao Yang couldn't help looking a little stunned. Even if he knew he was a semi-emperor strong, this alone was not enough for him to give away the burning essence Chalcedony. Xiao Yang didn't believe what Shenlaro said, which was just and unjust. That kind of words was just used to coax ghosts. Xiao Yang doesn't think that there is anything worth Shenlaro doing. After all, even his current strength can't be ranked in the cloud-hidden pavilion. But in this way, what on earth is this Shenlaro giving himself this burning essence Chalcedony for? For a long time, Xiao Yang has no intention to think about it. As far as Xiao Yang is concerned, as long as he can get the burning essence Chalcedony, the purpose of Shenlaro is not so important. If he really wants to do something to himself, Xiao Yang is also confident that he will come back. "Well, thank you, Shenlaro." Xiao Yang arched his hands again, nodded slightly, and smiled at Shenlaro. Shenlaro also smiled again when he heard the speech. The essence in his old eyes flickered. All kinds of thoughts in Xiao Yang's heart were guessed by him. The look in Xiao Yang's eyes also added a little meaning of admiration. What did the little friend of Rock Owl say? Today's thing is that I didn't do a good job in Union Pavilion, which led to some people trying to extort and plunder. I should give an explanation to the little friend of Rock Owl. How can I thank you? Xuanlao's meaningful words also made Li Kang, who had been standing aside and bowed his head silently, blush unceasingly, and his anger was about to burst. I'm afraid that if Shenlaro was not present at the moment, even if it was Union Pavilion, Li Kang would have to force his hand on Xiao Yang, and those who belong to other powers, after feeling the looming violent killing intention of Li Kang, all changed their faces in an instant. It seemed that for fear of provoking the murderous god again, they bowed down to Shenlaro and left, and the hall on the 4th floor became empty in a short video. Only Li Kang and the 8-star saint behind him remained. Of course, Xiao Yang was not in a hurry to leave. After all, Li Kang was still here. He wanted to see what Li Kang wanted to do. Seeing Xiao Yang's smiling face and pondering expression, Shenlaro was also helpless. His eyes looked at Li Kang with disgust. Li Kang usually looks like a dandy. He does a lot of bullying. It's just that he can't say anything because of his identity. Moreover, Li Kang's grandfather also has some abilities. As long as he is in this wild ancient city, even his cloud-hidden pavilion should give him some face. This also made Li Kang not afraid of anyone. Even in the face of the strong saint, he looked down on him. But today, I happened to meet Xiao Yang, so I can only blame him. The silence lasted for a long time. Shenlaro turned his eyes to Li Kang again. He also knew that if Xiao Yang didn't leave first today, I'm afraid Li Kang would have to stay here all the time. However, looking at Xiao Yang's meaning on this aspect, it is obvious that he has an indifferent attitude towards it. Shenlaro is also helpless. As soon as his eyes turn, he immediately straightens his face and speaks to Li Kang again. "Child Li, your behavior just now scared away all the guests of our Union Pavilion. According to the rules of our Union Pavilion, although you haven't done anything, it has become a fact. Therefore, please leave our Union Pavilion." You can't step into our Union Pavilion for half a month. Once the above-board words came out, Li Kang's face turned into a gloomy one. In the silent hall at the moment, he could even hear his gnashing of teeth, which was enough to reflect Li Kang's anger at the moment. Child Li, is it difficult? Are you going to violate the rules of my cloud-hidden pavilion? Xianlaro was also old at the moment, and a cold and fierce color appeared on his face. A little fighting spirit was used between his words, which made the hall tremble. With the addition of fighting spirit, the voice of Xuanlao's words also directly passed through the cloud-hidden pavilion and passed into the ears of those people in the city. Suddenly, everyone in the city was boiling again. In this wild ancient city, who can be called Child Li would not know that it was Li Kang. At the moment, Li Kang dared to violate the rules of Union Pavilion. I'm afraid his grandfather came, which would be of no help. Hey, this rolling calf is really bold. Even the rules of Union Pavilion dare to violate. Now look at the elder who speaks, it should be Xianlao. Ha, you deserve it. Sure, keep your voice down. If the Li family hears you, be careful of your head. When the words of Xianlao came out, even if someone made a sneer, of course, there were some people who were careful to remind them. After all, Li Kang's reputation is well known in this wild ancient city. If you don't provoke him, naturally no one will die at leisure. At the moment, in the cloud-hidden pavilion, Li Kang naturally has no time to pay attention to what those outside people say about him. At the moment, he has only endless anger in his heart, but even so, after some struggle in his heart, he still reluctantly replied yes, and then he quickly disappeared into the cloud-hidden pavilion with the old man behind him. Hehe, Brother Yang Xiao, these two people are all gone now. I have also given corresponding punishment. Your unhappiness should be gone. Xiao Yang also smiled when he heard the speech. He didn't know why. The mysterious old man should be afraid that he would really kill them in a rage in the cloud-hidden pavilion. I don't care about trifles, but if they still want to commit crimes with me, I can't recognize people casually. Looking at the cruelty on Xiao Yang's face, Xianlao also looked a little moved, smiled bravely, and said again. Ha, that's natural. Today's business is just because I'm a businessman in Union Pavilion. If something happens, it's bad for my reputation. However, when I'm outside Union Pavilion, he can only see his own fortune, ha. However, it is worth mentioning that Brother Yang Xiao, Li Kang's grandfather, is not weak. He is a 6-star and half emperor. I hope Brother Yang Xiao can pay attention. Xiao Yang smelled the speech and a flash of light flashed through his face. No wonder Li Kang dared to be so bold. His grandfather's strength has reached the level of 6-star and half emperor. However, even so, as far as Xiao Yang is concerned, it's just like that. He has killed 2 8-star and a half emperors, only 1 6-star and a half emperor. What waves can be aroused is just a matter of the reincarnation of Buddha's anger. But Xiao Yang couldn't say anything about Xuanlao's kind hint. After thanking him, Xiao Yang smiled again. As long as he doesn't annoy me, I don't bother to pay attention to him. As soon as Xiao Yang said this, the look on Xuanlao's face was also a little stunned. The 6-star and half emperor was in front, but he was able to say such words. I really don't know where he came from such courage. He smiled and nodded. Xianlao stopped talking, and Xiao Yang didn't want to explain so much. If Li Kang's grandfather really wanted to do it to him, Xianlao would understand at that time. They talked a few more words, but Xianlao was full of silence. With his shrewdness, he still felt a burst of helplessness in the face of Xiao Yang. He didn't know what kind of clever cross-examination he had, but he couldn't ask Xiao Yang any information. After a long time, Xiao Yang finally left the cloud-hidden pavilion under the strange eyes of Xianlao. Xianlao also disappeared slowly, as if he had never appeared. When Xiao Yang left Union Pavilion, in the 6th floor of Union Pavilion, a young man in green robes looked at Xiao Yang's figure with a smile and slowly disappeared into the crowd. Because of the boundary established by the strong man, Xiao Yang never found out about the man. The cloud-hidden pavilion is on the 6th floor. Xuanlao's body slowly emerged from somewhere in the hall, and looked at the young man standing in front of the window with an exclamatory smile. After a long time, Xianlao waited for the man to take back his eyes. Then he smiled and sighed. Young lord, I'm old, but I haven't seen you pay so much attention to a person for a long time. The man smiled softly and didn't answer. Just in his eyes, there was a little light flashing. How? The clear and unique words came slowly from his mouth. Xianlao also understood what he meant. Without too much hesitation, Xianlao sighed softly and said with a smile. This man is extraordinary. Even if he is old, he should be very careful when talking with him. Moreover, he also tested the overall strength of my Cloud Hermit Pavilion in a roundabout way. If it weren't for the old man, I would be smart. I can't say what he really wants to ask. The man smiled again, but it seemed as if he had expected it. He smiled and asked again, "Is he looking for something?" Hearing this, Shenlaro couldn't help picking up his eyebrows. The little lord seemed to pay too much attention to the rock owl. That's not true, but the old man gave him the burning essence Chalcedony he wanted according to your arrangement. The man nodded gently and didn't speak, but Shenlaro suddenly gave a chuckle at the corners of his mouth and said with a smile. When the old man talked to him, I reminded him that Li Gan's strength was 6-star and half emperor, but his answer was a little strange. Without waiting for the man to ask, old Shen continued. He said that if Li dared not touch him, he wouldn't bother to pay attention to it, but it meant something big. Xuanlao's words were not so simple. The man before he met was obviously very concerned about Xiao Yang. He was afraid that he read the wrong person. But when he said this, the man heard an inexplicable laugh. Then the man turned to Shenlaro and said with a smile, "Shenlaro, you said he was entrusted. Hihi, if you saw how he killed a crack cloud wolf with the strength of 8.5 stars on that day, I'm afraid you wouldn't have such an idea." As soon as he said this, several other semi-imperial strongmen in the hall, including Shenlaro, all changed their faces. They looked at the man with unbelievable looks. How terrible it must be to kill 8.5 emperors in one blow. He is a small 3-star semi-emperor. Can he really do it? However, since these words came from the young population in front of you, you present will naturally have no doubt. Therefore, in your hearts at the moment, there are only 4 words to summarize Xiao Yang's strength positioning: playing a pig and eating a tiger. The figure that has been standing in front of the window, the leader of the little pavilion among all the population in the wild ancient city, and the real behind-the-scenes leader of the Union Pavilion, is Luo Jin, who was separated from Xiao Yang a few months ago. In an inn, Xiao Yang sat cross-legged on his bed. The burning formula skill in his body slowly operated. Between heaven and earth, the pure and extreme energy of heaven and earth also appeared from the space around Xiao Yang's body and turned into thin strands of energy. From the pores of Xiao Yang's body, it entered the meridians in Xiao Yang's body. With the continuous operation of the skill, after several refinements, finally, he joined the cyclone in Xiao Yang's body along the path of Kung Fu. After this situation lasted for 2 hours, the cyclone in Xiao Yang gradually stopped running, and the vast energy of heaven and earth lingering around Xiao Yang also dispersed slowly. Xiao Yang's eyelids, still sitting on the bed, trembled slightly and slowly opened his eyes. At the moment he opened his eyes, a sharp and unparalleled light suddenly shot out of Xiao Yang's eyes and instantly tore the void space in front of him. Then he didn't enter it and disappeared. The corners of his mouth smiled and didn't care about it. As soon as Xiao Yang's palm turned over, a delicate jade box appeared in Xiao Yang's palm out of thin air. Ignoring the extremely cold temperature in the eyes of ordinary people, Xiao Yang opened the jade box in his palm. In the jade box, the red crystal with the size of an adult's palm was finally exposed to the air at this moment. At the moment of being properly sealed, the crystal seems to vent its resentment accumulated by being sealed for a long time. Before the jade box was completely opened, a terrible flame hotter than the magma torrent burst out from the crystal and swept into the guest room where Xiao Yang was. For the terrible flame that even the strong saint should be careful to face, Xiao Yang smiled again at the corners of his mouth and whispered, "It's really angry, but, oh, I don't want to lose money. How can you destroy here at will? Come back." With a slight reprimand, the terrible flame that had not really swept into the whole guest room was quickly recovered as if it had heard God's instructions. Although the flame was terrible, at the moment, under the light rebuke, nothing in the guest room was damaged, that is, even the crystal surface was extremely cold. At this moment, the ice-cold gas that had been completely suppressed also surged up again. Just in a moment, the red crystal stone had turned into an ice like ice wrapped in a fire. Take out the ice that has become a little bigger in this moment with one hand, and the cold ice also disappears rapidly, and only the red crystal is left in Xiao Yang's palm. Yangjing Chalcedony, ha ha. It's really unexpected that this kind of best fire attribute Yangjing should meet here. It's really willing to meet the cloud-hidden pavilion. The essence of the essence of the essence is Jade Essence, which contains a very violent and terrible fire attribute energy. It is a very good one among many fire properties. Xiao Yang was sure that if he had spent money to buy it at that time, he might have taken out all the 280,000 spirit coins he now had, and he might not be able to buy this burning essence Chalcedony. It can be seen from this that how precious this burning essence Chalcedony is. Everything that can be put in the cloud-hidden pavilion is really good. This is what Xiao Yang needs to cultivate the 9-turn incarnation formula. Without hesitation, Xiao Yang put away the jade box. Xiao Yang thought a little. The terrible soul power swept out of the center of his eyebrows in an instant. Then, the 9 incarnations appeared in front of Xiao Yang. With a wave of the big sleeve, the burning essence chalcedony in the palm of the hand suddenly burst out and directly entered one of the 9 incarnations. When the mind was moved, a gorgeous flame wrapped the avatar in an instant, while the other 8 avatars were taken back in an instant. After all, a piece of fire attribute Yangjing can only depict the mark of skill and method once, and cannot support these 9 avatars at the same time. With this in mind, Xiao Yang also reacted instantly. In this way, he will live a life without money in the future. With a sigh in his heart, Xiao Yang shook his head again and threw the thoughts in his head out of the body. With a boost of spirit, the power of terrible soul swept out again, turned into an invisible blade over Xiao Yang's head and flew away towards the burning essence chalcedony. Chong! A crisp sound like the collision of gold and iron suddenly spread from the depths of Xiao Yang's soul, which made Xiao Yang frown together at the moment. Unexpectedly, the process of engraving skill is so difficult. Even with my imperial soul, it is difficult to shake it. It seems that it is very difficult to really refine this incarnation. A thought flashed in his heart, and Xiao Yang no longer kept his hand. The endless soul power in his mind poured out and merged into the soul blade. At this moment, under the perfusion of Xiao Yang's huge soul power, the originally invisible blade has completely turned into essence at this moment, which is like a real existence. Drink! The heart suddenly issued a fierce drink. Xiao Yang's heart read a move, which was to control the sharp blade of the soul, and collided with the burning essence chalcedony. Chong! Another crisp sound, an invisible ripple like a water wave, spread from the place where the attack was made. However, this time, different from the previous one, a light white impression was left on the burning essence chalcedony. This video will end here.